everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathleen and today's video is a very late video, but hey, better late than never. Today's video we are wrapping up my reading from August all the way to December of 2019. So August was the start of my very bad reading slump. The last good reading month that I had was back in July, which I did do my wrap up just a few weeks ago, very late again. Because I went through this reading slump, I kind of didn't want to film my wrap ups at all, so that's why I'm like 6 months behind on my wrap up. So this video is kind of serving the purpose of just wrapping up 2019 and catching up on my wrap ups. This video is going to be a little bit long just because I am wrapping up like 6 months worth of reading. So hang in with me, we're gonna go ahead and get started with August. Alright, so during the month of August I actually only read a whopping one book, and that book was Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This is actually set in the same world as the Remnant Chronicles. I absolutely love the Remnant Chronicles. It is one of my favorite series of all time, and I was super excited to read this book, and I was quite actually disappointed by this book. I did give it 3 stars. It was just okay. There was a hate to love relationship, and I felt it was a bit rushed, very unnatural, and so I kind of did not like this book as much. As I said, I did give it 3 stars. The next book that I read was the only book that I read in the month of September, and it is The Lady Rogue by Jen Bennett. This is actually about a girl who is the daughter of this famous treasure hunter, and he goes missing and she kind of has to find him. I actually really enjoyed this book. There was a lot of woman empowerment, and there was a lot of like mystery, a really cool adventure book, and I really enjoyed my reading experience with this book. It is my first Jen Bennett book, and I did give it 4 stars. Alright, and then the next book that I read is a book that I read towards the end of September into October, and it is a book that I received for free for review. I did vlog my reading experience, so I'll leave it linked on the screen for you guys to check it out. And the book is Emerge by Jim and Stephanie Croftful. This is a sci-fi book, and it's about these really gifted teenagers who have been selected for like this program where they're merging minds. So there is this group of really accomplished people, older people who have died or are on their way to dying. They're very old now, and they want to insert the minds of these accomplished people into these teenagers so that these teenagers can continue their work. I did enjoy the idea of it, and I did enjoy the book. I actually had a lot of fun reading this book, and so I did give this book 4 stars. The next book that I read was also a new to me author, and I love this book a lot more than I thought I would. And I honestly, after reading this book, I want to read all of the books by this author, and it is a genre that I don't normally pick up. And so the book that I read was Foolish Hearts by Emma Mills, and I read this during October. It is about romance and friendship, and there's like these group of teenagers and they're part of a play, and I just thought it was so fun. It was a lighthearted contemporary, and I just had such a great time reading this book. I really connected with the main character. I absolutely loved the love interest, and I loved the friendships in this book. It was so genuine, and I just had a fun time reading this book. I did give it 5 stars. Alright, and then the next book that I read was one of my most anticipated reads of 2019, and holy crap, was it a wild roller coaster ride. And it is Supernova by Marissa Meyer. This is the 3rd and final book in the Renegades series, the trilogy. Wow, so many things happened, but the thing that happened that was like the biggest shock was the ending. So the ending happened and everything got wrapped up nicely, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. And then the epilogue happened, and I'm like, she introduced something new to the epilogue, to the story, and I'm just like, is she writing more in this series? Because I really hope so, because you can't just introduce something new and then end the book. So if you guys have read the book, then you know what I'm talking about, but I hope that she writes more in the series because I need answers to what happens in the epilogue. Like seriously, I did give it 5 stars. Alright, and then the next 2 books that I read, they were actually part of this collection from Amazon that was actually a free to download for Prime members, and it's called the Disorder collection, and there are 6 short stories in this collection, and I have read 5 of them. 2 of them I did read in November, and out of the 5 that I have read, I've only enjoyed 1. I only really liked 1, and the other ones girls were like, what happened? The one short story that I did like that I read in November was called The Best Girls by Min-ji Lee. And this is set in Korea. It's about this girl whose family puts a lot of emphasis on traditional Korean families, and their family puts a lot of emphasis on having boys because boys are the ones that grow up and take care of the elderly parents, and girls usually get married off. Their family has 3 girls and she's just one of them. Her parents do have a 4th child, and it is a boy, and they're so overjoyed, and the boy gets a lot of attention and the girls just kind of get left behind. And this story was really heartbreaking to read. Something happens at the end of this book that left me very surprised, very shocked. It's a story that I still think about because of how much it shocked me. I gave this story 4 stars, but I just loved it. This is the only book out of the 5 short stories that I read that I really enjoyed. So the next book that I read from this collection is called The Ungirls by Lauren Bukes, and this story was just weird. It's a short story. It has a message. It's putting an emphasis on how sexualized our world is, and it also puts a lot of emphasis on slut shaming. It's a weird story, and at first I was like into it because I was like, okay, I can get behind this message. I understand what the author is trying to say, but the way it ended, I felt like it was just very anticlimactic. I was like, you build up this story with this great message and then you kind of don't go anywhere with it. So I thought it was weird. I gave it 2 stars. The next book that I read towards the end of November, and it is a book that I've had for a very long time. I had an e-copy of this book and I saw the movie. Honestly, the movie was the reason why I wanted to read the book. And so the book is called Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion, and it's basically about zombies and how they still have their souls. One zombie kind of falls in love with this human girl, and a human girl tries to help him out, sort of. And I actually really loved the movie, and again, that's why I wanted to read the book. And my friend Desiree from Libre Lava, she read the book and she absolutely loved it. Honestly, she raved about it so much and she told me to read it, and so I did, and I really loved it. I didn't quite love it as much as she did. Honestly, that story just moved her so much, and I was expecting that, but it didn't quite happen for me. But I enjoyed the story and I loved the characters, and I loved the character of R, who is our zombie. I liked the way the book ended. It kind of had a nice ending to it. I did give it 4 stars. Alright, moving on to the last month in this wrap up, which was December. And so the first book that I read was part of the Once Upon a Read Along book club, which is now called the BookTube Chicks book club, and it is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I always wanted to read this series ever since I read To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han, and I was honestly hoping that I would love it as much as I loved To All the Boys I Loved Before, but I didn't. This book really fell short of my expectations. I just didn't care about the main character, and I don't really care for one of the love interests. I loved some of the side characters, and the story was kind of okay. That magic that was into All the Boys I Loved Before, for me, it just wasn't present in this book, and so I don't know if I'm going to continue on with the rest of the series. I did give it 3 stars. The next book that I read was a short story by one of my favorite authors, and that was Taylor Jenkins Reid, and the book is Evidence of the Affair. This is a short story. This is about a husband and a wife, not to each other, they're not married to each other, but they find out that their significant other are having an affair with each other, and that's how they met, and they're kind of trying to figure out what to do with their cheating spouses. And I love Taylor Jenkins Reid because she really grabs your attention and she really hooks you into the story, and she really makes you feel for these characters, and that's what I really loved about this book. This book doesn't necessarily have the ending that I wanted. I really wanted this happy ending, but I loved this book so much that I did give it 4 stars. The next book that I read is by someone whose blog I've been following for many years, and she wrote a book based on the blogs that she posted, and it is Hyperbole in the Half by Ali Brosh. So Ali has this blog, it's called Hyperbole and a Half, and she draws her stories out like comic strips. All of her stories are kind of like based on her life. It's all about her dogs and her childhood. She also creates stories based on her mental illness. She suffers from depression and anxiety. Some of her stories are hilarious, especially about her dog and her childhood antics, but some of her stories are also really serious, like the ones where she deals with depression and and her anxiety. And I love this book so much. It was very easy for me to read just because, again, half the book is pictures, but I still loved it none the same, and I ended up giving this book 5 stars. Next book that I read was another short story from the Disorder collection from Amazon, and this one's called The Beckoning Fair One by Dan Chan. I apologize, I'm horrible with last names. And this is the first book, well, this is a short story, but this is the first time I've ever given anything 1 star. I have never given a book 1 star because I've never actually disliked a book that much. Like, I have disliked a lot of books with passion, but there was always something about the book that I enjoyed. So I couldn't make myself give that certain book 2 stars. It's about these siblings. The sister, she has these weird abilities, and then there's the younger brother, and he doesn't understand his sister. She becomes obsessed with really handsome men, and they always end up disappearing. Honestly, that's pretty much all I understood from this book. This book was so weird. I don't understand at all. If any of you guys have read the Disorder collection from Amazon and you've read this particular short story and you can explain to me what the heck I just read, I would be so grateful. Literally, my review on Goodreads is 1 star, and then like I wrote, I don't understand what I just read, because I don't understand the story. I don't really get it. Alright, and then the next short story that I read is also from this Disorder collection, and it's called Will Williams, and it's by Namwali Serpell. This is about this man named Will Williams who he has this doppelganger who keeps following him and shadowing him and getting him in trouble. I actually enjoyed the story. I thought it was weird, but I kind of like, there were certain elements was just like, this is super creepy because you have this look-alike and he's like causing havoc in your life. I gave this short story 3 stars. It was one of the better ones from this collection. Alright, and then the next book that I read was also a short story from the Disorder collection, and it is called Anonymous. It is by, honestly, I cannot pronounce this name at all, so I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it on the screen. This is about a man who basically is not a white man, and he travels a lot for his job, and so he got flagged by customs while going through airport security, and they keep him there for a long time questioning him, and this is basically his story. I thought it was interesting. However, I felt like there was no emotion behind in this book. You didn't feel sorry for the man. You kind of just felt like it was an inconvenience for him, and that's how I felt reading the story. So I did give it 3 stars. I thought there would be more depth to the story, but I didn't quite get that. And then the final 2 books that I read for this very massively long wrap-ups were also short stories, and these were short stories from a new collection that I found from Amazon, and it's called the Forward collection. Again, I downloaded the ebook and the audiobook because they were free to download for Prime members. And the first book that I read was actually written by a very famous author that we all know, and it's called Arc, and it was written by Veronica Roth. And this is a story about these group of scientists who are working very fast and very diligently to catalog as much of the plant life on Earth, because there's basically a meteor that's going to hit Earth and destroy the entire planet. The clock is counting down from when they have to get on this ship to flee the planet before all life is destroyed. I actually really quite enjoyed the story. A lot of the stories that I read and a lot of the movies that I watch about the end of the planet or end of the Earth is very chaotic. It's very fast-paced. There's so much happening, and I felt like this book was very different. It was very slower paced, a lot more calmer, because these people know that they're getting off the planet. They're just doing their job until time runs out and they have to go. I also found a lot of humanity in this book. There was this sense of finality, and it was just honestly very sad. I just love the story so much. I feel like Veronica Roth did a very good job writing the story, and if you have not read the story, if you didn't even know it existed, I will highly recommend it because I just honestly thought it was really good. I did give it 4 stars. And finally, the last book that I read this month was another short story from the Forward collection from Amazon, and it was so good. I honestly loved it so much, and the story is called The Last Conversation by Paul Tremblay. So this story begins with you waking up and you have no idea what's going on. You're in this hospital bed, you have no memory of what happened to you, and there's this voice coming from the speaker that's trying to help you regain your memories and also work out what's going on. It's a story that I was like, okay, this person is probably waking up from a very long coma and they lost their memories in an accident kind of thing. And then it ends on something completely different and you're like, what's going on? And the way it ends was just like, holy crap, this is happening. And I just really enjoyed the story. There was a bit of mystery too, because you don't know who you are as the reader, because you're reading from this person's perspective and you don't know what's going on, and there's all these little clues popping up. Those little clues don't come together until the very ending, and I ended up giving this story 5 stars. Honestly, I have high hopes for this collection just because 2 out of the 6 stories from this collection have been very, very, very good. And there you go, guys. That it was my very long wrap up from August to December of 2019. I am finally caught up. My god, I didn't think I would ever, because I kept pushing filming this video so many times. Anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments below, how was your reading during the year of 2019? Even though I slumped for half of the year, I did meet my Goodreads goal, which was 50 books, so I'm pretty proud of myself. But honestly, it has probably a lot to do with the fact that I read a lot of short stories towards the end. Anyway, guys, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. All of my social medias are linked down below, including Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads, if you'd like to follow me on those platforms. I hope to see you guys on my next video. Have a good day, guys, and keep reading. Bye!